Welcome to the Dig Endurance Podcast, where we are all about digging deep and discovering the power of emotional resilience. I'm Aaron, and I'm joined by my brother Sean.
As endurance athletes and business owners, we have learned a thing or two about facing and overcoming adversity. We are here to share inspiring stories from our guests that will help you to find that inner strength when you feel like you are running on empty.
Are you ready? Let's dig in. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dig Endurance Podcast. This is Aaron and Sean here.
Hey.
We were supposed to have our brother-in-law, Evan, with us today, but he's excused for today. So
He had a valid excuse.
yeah, he did.
We'll let him go.
He did. But it'll be just us two again today for another round. However, in the future, we do expect and plan to make sure that we'll have a guest most times with us in the future. So hopefully folks aren't getting too sick of us.
Yeah, we have a few lined up.
Just yet. However, we do have, I think, a good topic to dive into today. Something that Sean and I will discuss together and go into some of our own experiences and stories with. And that is, I think what's been on my mind, after our first couple discussions is, we've talked a lot about what dig means to us. We've talked about some topics related to digging in and overcoming adversity and really what it means to go where you want to go and achieve results you want to achieve and be better and go further than where you are or where you've been, or even just picking yourself up to get back on track even, I guess. And we've talked about, consistency,
checking the boxes.
And
with intention.
being intentional, results. We talked about a lot to that effect. Something that has been on my mind is the what place does being honest with yourself and with others have in being able to go from where you are now to where you want to be.
It's like a base characteristic of how you operate day to day.
Like whether that be just picking yourself up, off the ground if you've been knocked down or you're in a tough spot, or hey, I'm here today and I want to see myself going to up to this place 5 years from now, 10 years from now, even 1 year from now, maybe 1 month from now, whatever that looks like. I feel like that in general, that something that holds us back as humans in a lot of ways is the what's the word that I'm looking for? It is generally unacceptable, I feel, to be straightforward honest with each other. It's almost like taboo.
It's the most uncomfortable feeling there is, because what's going to happen?
Yeah. Something that people either like about me or can't stand about me,
or don't like about you,
is that I'm so straightforward. That's either like one of my biggest, I guess, greatest attributes or one of my greatest flaws. And I guess for me, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all wired one way or another. I guess for me, what's so hard about not being straightforward is, why would I not want to be straightforward?
I don't know.
To me, if I'm filtering the comment at all, or I'm filtering the feedback, or I'm filtering what needs to be said to go from, if someone's voicing something to me, say someone's unhappy with me, Kelsey, let's take my wife.
Yeah.
I don't want that feedback dumbed down. I don't want it watered down. If I'm receiving watered down feedback, how am I going to be able to address the core root or the true issue of the problem? And yet, most people crave watered down feedback.
It doesn't require vulnerability, Aaron. It doesn't. It's easy, right? Being vulnerable, maybe you don't feel that way, but being vulnerable to that aspect it's not an easy thing to do. That requires trust, which brings you back to the honesty that you're talking about in the first place. So if you haven't developed that, which is one of your core personalities, I mean, I will attest to that, then you know what I mean?
You know why I think most people crave watered down feedback?
Let's hear it.
Have you read Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership?
The one that everyone's reading right now?
It's such a good book. And I've also had the pleasure of meeting him in person and going to a seminar with him in person. I think the main reason that people crave watered down feedback is their ego. I don't think that people can handle. Have you seen Jack Nicholson? You can't handle the truth.
Yes, of course.
That it really just boils down to it. I think at the end of the day, people cannot handle the truth or the real feedback because of their ego.
Okay.
It hurts too much to hear the reality or the truth, whether that be how someone perceives you or how someone feels about you, or
how it's communicated.
And sometimes it doesn't even come from somebody else. Sometimes I think we get in our own way. Like, can we really look in the mirror and hold ourselves accountable and say, you know what, I'm not doing X, Y, Z, and that's why I'm not to this place yet. Instead, sometimes I think we just look at it, well, I'm trying, so, at least I'm doing the best I can, so it's all gonna work out.
Most people don't do that because it's easy to create an excuse to not look in the mirror. I mean, think how easy it is to say, oh, should I look at myself in the mirror? Metaphorically speaking, right? You don't have to physically look yourself in the mirror, but how easy is it to say, yeah, I'm gonna check myself today and be like, I went to work early today. Okay, I did this. Then you're like, yep, I'm doing it right. I'm good.
Yeah. And so the question, I think,
how honest are you?
Well, how honest are you
right?
with others and with yourself? And I guess the question is this, you have to ask yourself, okay, and this is where I guess I constantly arrive at the answer is no to this question, which is why I think I'm
what?
As straightforward as I am, and that is it worth not hurting your feelings so that you can't get where you want to go?
Depends on what you're saying the worth is, right? What's the value of the response? What are you looking for? What do you want out of it?
Well,
some people might want the easy route.
To me,
right?
Like,
how uncomfortable are you willing to be?
I'm pretty dang willing to be uncomfortable,
and that's my response to what you're saying, Aaron. How uncomfortable am I willing to be? Like you said, right? Look in the mirror. How uncomfortable am I willing to be and really look in the mirror? What am I going to say?
Yeah. Well, that's the question.
And how honest am I with myself?
And I guess my point is, to the larger picture, and to the listener is, if you're going to successfully dig in, and you're going to, whether again it's to pick yourself back up or overcome, a challenge or adversity, or if it's simply setting a goal and looking to go somewhere you haven't been, to your point, you have to be willing to hear the hard truths. If you're unwilling to hear the hard truths and the real feedback, I'll tell you right now, I don't think you're going to go as far as you could go.
I agree. I think we can cover that. For a little bit, we can talk about that. And then kind of on the opposite part, how we can dig out. What if you've made mistakes? What if you're in a hot spot, Aaron? What if, like I have been a few times, you chose a dishonest route? Whatever degree the dishonesty was, now you're in a pickle, right? And I think, after we discuss what you're talking about, I think we can get to a point where we might talk about what it looks like to dig out of that hole and what the rewards are.
Yeah.
What it feels like.
Yeah. Like, for me...
So no one's honest to a degree.
Well,
fully. Is that what you're kind of saying? Or even yourself?
I think that, going off my experience, I think that most people, like I said earlier, I think they don't want to hear the direct, straight truth.
I agree.
Or as we like to call them, the cold hard facts. I think most people are uncomfortable or do not want it told straightforward. And I think it's, like I said, I think it's ego primarily and hurt feelings that prevents people from hearing that.
Okay.
And from a CEO standpoint, leading 170, 180 plus people, or as a coach, working with people in endurance training, the hard thing about that is trying to find the balance between giving people direct feedback. Because listen, if you're just like being a bully and like berating somebody, that's wrong. Okay. I'm not advocating for someone that's like,
Just to walk around shooting facts out to shoot them and put someone down.
Just like putting someone down to put them down. We're talking about like, hey, Sean, or Aaron, if we're talking about forward, I work with a third-party billing company that I work with. And sometimes it's funny, I can tell they're wanting to be professional. And I appreciate it, but it's like, well, Aaron, you see, if are you just trying to say if my people would get their dumb signatures done the same day that we'd actually bill X amount more in that day? Yeah, that's basically what we're saying. Okay, then tell me that. It's taken me 3 years with this, and I've grown a good relationship with these guys, but it's like I've had to help them understand, guys, if you have other clients, because they have other accounts that they manage, where they're helping to do their collectibles for what they bill their clients. If they don't want to hear the straight truth and what their team needs to do to make it better, then that's their issue. When you're talking with me, if my team is doing something that's wrong or holding up the process or that we need to improve or make better, you tell me today and just tell me straight. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm not like, it doesn't make me feel like, oh my gosh, I've run the worst behavioral mental health company in the world. What it makes me feel like is, oh, we've got some things that we can improve, and if I improve them, my revenue next month should be better than it is this month. So why wouldn't I do those things?
Yeah, I mean, maintaining communication between two professional organizations to maintain, right, a positive relationship between the two versus like what you're saying is the need to communicate things directly and honestly, right?
So here's the question then. How do you balance the need for, again, direct feedback, being transparent, telling the cold hard facts with people who generally don't want to hear those things, and you're trying to work with or help them to get where they want to go? That's the hard question. Everyone wants the results. Everyone wants to get picked back up. Everyone wants to, man, I really want to get out of this hole, or man, I really want to go to Boston next year and hit that marathon goal. But do they really want to hear the direct feedback that it takes to achieve those things? And how do you balance that with someone? How do you get them to get to a place where they can take and handle that kind of feedback?
You'll know because that person's going to respond with a accountability response, right? And you're going to know because, and you'll know this as the CEO here, when you give someone direct information, the way that you're describing it right now, what happens if feedback is given, accountability is not taken, or whatever, whatever you want to call it? There's some short-term benefits, I guess, of hearing it for them, but what are the long-term benefits of them not accepting feedback or being honest with themselves or taking accountability, any of those things? What generally happens short-term, and then what happens long-term?
Well, short-term, I mean,
and I'm talking them. What is going to happen for them? I pretty much know what you're going to do or what's going to happen with you. Short term, if they hear a few things, what are the benefits if they're dishonest with themselves? Oh yes, hey Aaron, I'll get it done, or I'll do this, and you go back a week later. Same thing. Task isn't completed. Feedback's not received. I don't know. Email is not sent. How many times are you going to go to them, and then what does that look like short term? Then what does it look like long term if they're accountable? Yeah, okay, you know what? I missed that one. I'll do better. Hey, Sean, you need to focus on, these intakes are going great. You really need to focus on availability. It would really help us a lot, right? My natural egotistical response is like, no, I don't. I have tons of intakes. Why would I need to focus on that? But then after 5 minutes, my mentality is like, oh, there's a challenge. I can do better, right? Short-term effect would be like, I would just say, okay, I'll do it, and I would not take accountability. It's not going to work out. There's almost no benefits short-term. Long-term, accepting accountability, I mean, it's polarizing, the difference.
Yes. I think, in my experience, it seems that the more that people, you mentioned the word trust earlier, I feel like the more people feel that you actually care about them and they trust you, the more likely they are to take the genuine feedback.
Totally. In fact, it's significantly easier, even when it's hard feedback. If you really trust that person, I mean, you're going to hear it.
Yeah.
And if you don't,
see, for me,
it speaks volumes.
For me, I just don't require the, I don't know, what do you want to call it? The smoothing over, the necessarily having like I generally believe that, like, if I'm in something, whether it be physical training or, you know, running a business, or whether it's feedback from Kelsey at home, like, generally speaking, I'm open to the feedback and I can take it. And I don't know if that's just like by virtue of my experience from having taken so much feedback for so long that you kind of get in a place where it's like, oh, okay, you know, got to make an adjustment. You and I had a disagreement yesterday.
Yep.
I mean, you apologized for it and I said, okay, apology accepted. We moved on. I've seen that take years for people or months for people. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm not perfect, but I'm just saying, I guess my point is I'm at the point where I don't require you to, like, necessarily prove to me that, you know, or, oh man, I can trust you, or he cares about me. I generally give people that benefit of the doubt unless they make me feel otherwise, I guess. But my experience, again, as a business owner with employees and raising 4 kids and, you know, coaching teams and people, has been that before I can, and it's frustrating, it really is, before I can give the real feedback to help them go where they want to go, where we need to go as a group or as a team or as a company, they just need to feel that I genuinely care about them, or that they can genuinely trust me, before they're truly going to hear and follow anything that it is I have to say from a feedback perspective.
I mean, I think that speaks volumes to, well, it does to myself, right? It was a challenging conversation that we had, and accountability was taken, and the response was quite simple, actually. Pretty sure we were working back to normal, I don't know, 45 seconds later.
Yeah.
You know, admitting your mistakes, whatever, asking for forgiveness, those basics. It's not. It's just, again, this puts me back in the short term versus the long term. If the conversation is based off of long-term feedback, what are the benefits to that? What's the response? What does that look like? We've spoken about this on previous podcasts, but when the challenges are there in front of you, whether or not you have the experience to go through them in the best way or the worst way, you can take that opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the need for accountability.
Yeah.
It's there. And when you take accountability, the response almost always is respect.
Yeah. Well, and it's
Right?
interesting. I just feel like some people, like that, you know, I read about, you know, whether it's Jocko Willink or others, you know, to that effect, that I really admire. You know, another one would be like an Elon Musk. The truth, like, again, I said the phrase earlier, like cold hard facts are the truth. Like, it's not up for debate. It's not malleable. Let me tell you something. There's this. Have you heard this phrase that the younger generation that we like, that people are throwing out there now, called "your truth"? There
Yes.
is no such thing as your truth. Let me just tell you that right now. There's no such
Okay,
thing.
what do you mean?
The truth is not mine. It's not yours. There is the truth. There are the facts. I don't get to take that and mold it. Gravity is gravity. The sky is blue, trees are green. Okay? There are...
Is the earth flat or round?
Well, but that's my point. There is no your truth. There is no my truth. We all live in the same truth. That's the period. And so, you know, it's interesting in work and also, you know, coaching wise. What do all these people do? If you're sitting down with someone, you're giving them truth, feedback, real feedback.
Yeah.
And not, you know, not from a place. I'll tell you right now, anyone who thinks that they're boss, and that's not to say, are there bad people out there? Yeah. Are there bullies out there? Yeah. Are there some people out there who get off on, watching people, get put down and
They're everywhere.
and belittling them.
They're everywhere.
They totally exist. So I'm not going to pretend. However, has my experience generally been that, you know what? Is my boss giving me this feedback because they want me to lose? Because they want the company to lose? Or is this probably good for me to hear? And if it's good for me, and if I can do this, it's probably good for the company.
Is it going to make you a better person?
Yeah. And more often than not, generally speaking, I believe the answer is yes. Take coaching, for example. Endurance training.
Yeah.
Okay. Is he telling me this because he wants me to feel slow and dumb and like I can't finish my race? Like it's like you said earlier, if you can just stop for a second and ask yourself the right questions. There's a book called Leadership and Self-Deception by the I think it's I'm going to botch this, Arbinger Institute, I want to say.
Okay.
But a whole part of the crux of the book is, number one, like I said earlier, developing relationships with people so they know that you care about them and trust them, or that they know you care about them and that they can trust you so they can take your feedback. The other part of that book is simply giving people the benefit of the doubt. Like, ask yourself genuinely, what good does it do my boss or my coach to see me fail or to put me down? And generally, the answer to that question logically is, well, it actually probably, think about as a coach, if you're making someone fail, do you think they're want to keep you as a coach if you're making them not get good results or fail? It's obviously not obviously not in your best interest as a coach to make someone fail. Do you think as a boss, if you're making somebody fail, that's gonna, their performance, if it's a failing
that
performance,
mentality doesn't, it literally
is that going to help the company?
Totally. It doesn't even make sense.
So it is illogical. It is illogical, and yet it's our tendency.
Yeah.
And so, I feel like people, you gotta. I felt like once I could get to a place where I could just accept that, whether it's Dad or whether it's you in coaching or whether it's Kelsey when I'm at home, and yes, she is the true CEO of my house. Take the feedback, take it quickly, and generally trust that, this is not doing this to put me down. This is to help me and thus help us as a team.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it happens. I just started 2 new athletes. And this, when I start them out, everything is slow. It depends on what your definition of slow is, but to me, it's slower than you are used to going. And so I always start off with here's the goals, this is how it works, and I usually try to do my best to make them as slow and uncomfortable as possible.
This is a good example.
Right?
Especially for me.
Heart rate, obsess over the heart rate, ignore the pace, ignore this, ignore that, ignore the miles, ignore everything. There's a timer and a heart rate. And when you're done, all I want to see from you is a red line of heart rate like this. That's it. I don't want to see spikes. I don't want to see, there was a hill. I don't want to see any of that. Follow the directions, and both of them did it. It was perfect. It was great. They came back. And so even though it seems so minimal, it's going to create a habit of accountability within that relationship, because now they're receiving feedback and they're seeing, okay, there's intention here behind this, and what's the next one, and what's the next one, and what's the next one, right? And so I can't tell you how many people I have coached that just ignore everything. But then they don't just ignore it, Aaron. They ignore it, and then they give excuses why they went and did something else. Or I'm just like...
Here's this is my favorite, and this is perfect to illustrate the example.
What?
And we don't share names on here, of course, but still. Okay. We'll call him George.
Okay.
Remember when George noticed that you were coaching this other guy, let's call him Jake, and saw that Jake's results were going from this to this.
Okay.
Exponential.
Uh-huh.
And then Jake qualified for Boston and was getting as fast or faster than George. And George reached out to you on social media and was like, "Man, what are you doing?" And you're like, you're like, "Well, hey, I'd be happy to work with you and give you some." But George, here's what's funny. George has been running. And remember I mentioned how a couple episodes back I've been running for way longer than you? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. See, at first, the initial response from me is like, how the heck did Sean get faster than me? I've been doing this for flipping 15 years. Sean was like overweight. Yeah, so I could stay that way. I could keep that as my thought process. Or what, you know where I arrive very quickly? Sean figured something out that I haven't. I'm going to ask Sean what that is.
Listening to feedback.
And I'm going to start taking his feedback because obviously what I'm doing is not working.
All I was told was to check boxes and follow directions.
But how many freaking people, so back to our example, George reaches out and you say, hey, there's probably some things you're doing. And what does he do? Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
And doesn't work with you?
Never.
And his results, we look and we see them on Strava and other things that we track.
Yeah.
They stay the same.
They do. I mean,
and why? Why do you think that he doesn't want to?
Because you know better.
Well, it's
you know better.
You know what I think it is? I think it's George's ego. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think George has been running since middle school.
Yeah.
No, I can figure this out. I know better.
It's all the same as 27 years ago.
I know better than Sean. I know better than Sean. And then we can see. That's what I love about Strava. Everyone can just see everyone's results. And listen, he's good, but he could be better.
Right. Yeah.
If you could just set the ego aside, and go further. And I am a good example of that because honestly, I know that if I would have just kept doing what I was doing, I'd probably be still running what I run and doing what I do. But as recently as this last year, I did like a half marathon with your coaching while I had like a sports hernia, and I ran like a 3 or 4 minute PR. And that's when you can set your ego aside, that you can achieve those kinds of results.
Well, listen, this is being honest with yourself, and what you're saying right now, it requires vulnerability. Being vulnerable in that
and
aspect,
humility.
Totally, yeah. Right? This all goes hand in hand perfectly because when I first got a coach, I had a really good friend that explained even what a coach was. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, dude, I played sports in high school. I ran cross country. Like I was all of this. It's like your immediate response is, I know. I already know. I finally let the ego go. And long story short, great coach. He's just like, dude, follow directions, check the boxes. Anytime I did something that was, off of the given directions, I knew within an hour, like, what are you doing? Why would you put all of this work in and then do this? Why would you? I mean, it's like if you're putting a draft together as an attorney, you're not going to put 26 pages together and then on page 24, just write like a paragraph about bumblebees and rainbows.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that draft's not going to work out in court. Yeah, right. You need the whole thing. If you want the result you're looking for, you're going to need the whole thing. A to Z. You're going to need to check the boxes.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the result you're looking for. Plain and simple.
Well, like for example, so ego is definitely a big part of it, but like in your running example, to most people, okay, if I want to get faster, if I want to run faster, especially if I'm a novice runner, what's their thought process? I need to train fast.
Run fast.
I need to train fast to go faster.
Go faster by 2% every single run.
And the funny thing about that is completely wrong.
Yeah.
It's completely the opposite of what you should do.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
If you're actually training for endurance, you're supposed to do like, mostly 80 to 90% slow runs, and what we call like a zone 1 to zone 2 heart rate, and really only do 1 to 2 at like a really push yourself kind of a pace.
Well, I tell people the same thing, Aaron. Like if you go to the gym, do you just go and you just lift more and more and more and harder and harder? No one does that. Right? Nobody does that. It literally applies across the board.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. I guess the point is it's like it's not what they thought logically though. And so like for them to like all of a sudden hear it or like what it takes, again, it is a knock on the ego because it's like you're used to being out there and running fast and feeling the feeling of running fast and people seeing you running fast. And when you're out there just taking a little dippity steps at a time, and you're doing
someone's gonna see that,
and you're doing your 10 or 11 minute a mile run. You're like, man, I look slow to everybody and whatever, but like that's what you should do though.
And that brings us back to the conversation. The whole point of talking about this is being honest with yourself, right? You're in a new chapter of your life. You're looking for new goals, whatever it is. If you're not willing to accept feedback from someone else or something else, whatever it is that's giving you feedback, and you're not honest with yourself and checking yourself and looking in the mirror, That's stagnates.
Yeah.
Plain and simple, stagnates.
And here's my other favorite along those lines. One time I decided to just, I do random audits or spot checks in my businesses, and you'll pop in. And this one time I remember popping in, and it was, things were not a good first impression for the first 5 or 10 minutes for various reasons. And, I check in with my manager there and just, hey, what's going on? And you know what his first words were? Oh, man, I didn't know you were coming today.
Why are you here?
What are you
doing here?
If I'd have known you were coming, if I'd have known what? So see, that right there is already the first clue that, okay.
Red flag.
So that's not transparent. That's not honest. If you want to dig in and you want to get real results, again, whether that's you're in a hard place and you want to get out of it, or you're here today but you want to be up here tomorrow or next year, then you need to, whether you're in the light or in the dark, you need to be the same person doing the right things always, no matter who you're around, no matter where you are, if you're going to achieve real results. It can't be, oh shoot, is my boss coming today, or whatever. Like, you have to have transparency and accountability every day. And generally, to me, what do you think my employees that wince the most or give the most pushback with accountability, what do you think that signals to me? You already said it.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's a red flag right there.
It's like, why are you uncomfortable getting the feedback or sharing the information? It's probably because you're not doing it, or you're resisting, or you're not following instructions, or you're not achieving the results. That would be probably the only reason why.
Yeah,
you're not being transparent.
That's a terrible place to be. Well, the stress, it's just terrible.
It's not the right place to be, and I've learned, I think, in my journey to embrace that. And here's the thing, like, it's not as if, being a CEO or an owner of a company or a dad of 4 kids. I think sometimes people too, like whether it be employees or, people you coach, it's not like because I'm giving you feedback, I have it all figured out, or like I'm exempt from feedback of my own. Everyone has to take feedback. Right. Everyone has to hear the truth, not your truth, the truth. Okay? Everyone needs to hear it. And what I've learned is, in order for me to get the results, for one, get the results, and 2, hopefully get them sooner than later, I need to set up steps along the way that constantly bring me that feedback, so I can ensure that I am getting the results I need to get, and I'm getting them quickly. Check-ins for me like that would include, you are my coach for endurance training. Do I not have a daily check-in with you?
All the time.
Via text message or a phone call?
Hourly check-in.
That is my time where I usually send a snapshot to Sean. Okay, am I on track or no? Sometimes it's, like recently, I didn't realize that I was supposed to be wearing my heart monitor for my strength training. I thought it was purely for cardio. And you finally like, hey, until you do this, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know you'd ask that. And you're like, yeah, you got to do it. Well, I can sit there and I can go, no, I don't want to do that. Oh man, it's a pain to put it on, or that's not that big, that's irrelevant, or you don't need to see, or I can quit being a little punk, and make the quick 5-second decision to say, oh, okay, I'm gonna wear my strap and do that during.
It was a quick
training.
Conversation where it's just like, okay, everything, okay.
And guess what? I'm assuming that if Sean can track my speed or my heart rate rather during all my workouts, there's a good chance it's probably going to help me.
Maybe the stress load and the fatigue is built in there,
and it's probably going to help me perform better in the long term. So daily check-in with you. I have board meetings for Forward. Those include some owners of our company, Dad, a few others. I've got Ash and April. Those board meetings, it's typical or easy for people to say, these meetings, yeah, they're boring, or yeah, it's just to check the box. Well, no, it's for me to hold myself accountable, ugly or otherwise, and say before my board, hey, things are going well or on the right track, or you know what? I'm experiencing some challenges right now. Ash and April and I have tried XYZ, which according to our experience is what is best, but are there other ways, according to your experience or your feedback, that you think we can do differently to take the company to where we want it to go sooner? And oftentimes the answer is yes. And I'm not, it doesn't hurt my ego to sit there
Right.
and acknowledge and hear like, hey, like we've been there before. We've managed AR. We've dealt with similar situations, and here's what you should try or tweak instead. And actually, by having those conversations, or like today, there's a phone call I had today. I invited Dad to be in on it. Why? Because with these certain issues I'm dealing with right now with regard to forward, I've reached my peak, my experience's peak. Okay.
Okay.
And in order for me, I think, to get beyond that wall, that ceiling, I needed to invite Dad in, be transparent on my shortcomings and where my limits are, so he can help me hopefully navigate and get over these blocks that are in the way.
Okay. So what happens from doing that? What are the results?
Well,
from,
what happens?
From any sort of accountability?
Well, what
like
happens
that?
whenever we have had those situations, most typically is that I get a little nugget or two or some new feedback that, oh, we haven't tried this, try that instead. Have you asked them this question? And then a light bulb kind of goes on in me. And you know what? Does it make me look less competent and like I don't know as much or know it all? The answer is yeah, it does actually. But so what? So what? So obviously, like, it's not like my learning is done at age 36 or just because I'm a CEO today of a company or an owner. And if it means that my company can get past this, is it worth me saying I have all the answers, I know it all, and my company's going to stay here and hit this wall? Or, hey, we could actually be getting an extra 10% on our AR and collecting more if I maybe try to invite some feedback or do what Dad tells me instead.
So in the short term, if you ignored the want to learn or to gain knowledge or to break down that barrier, if you ignored that short term, I don't know, you might feel good about yourself for an hour or two. You're going to be in the same predicament. You're going to be in the same problem, the same hole with the same conclusion, right?
Yeah.
But by doing that and working forward, it's funny how, I can't even imagine the response after you're done, because now you've got a little bit of peace, a little bit more knowledge. This is what I'd like to say about this whole conversation. After that example, after you do that, like, aside from these skills that you're doing, okay, that you're using or utilizing, what happens in life when we use this just a little bit of accountability, a little bit of honesty, a little bit of integrity? What are the results? And I'll tell you that for me, the results, the best results, other than myself being a better person in general, the results are my circle. Who's going to sit in your circle if you're operating like that? Is Dad going to show up when you do need something? Every time. Who's going to show up in your circle? How big is your circle? How small is your circle? How important is your circle? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, I have found that when I operate, my office door is open 24/7. You can always come in there and check stuff. I love operating like that. I'm always at ease. It doesn't matter what you're going to ask me, because it's hopefully done. And if it's not, it'll get done right now. My bad. Right?
Well, and that's probably a good place to wrap up the conversation here. Is there's the question right there. Is the door to your mind, to your proverbial office, is it open or closed?
Oh yeah.
The
peace with that is
can you take
unfathomable.
Can anyone step in at any time, give you some feedback, and can you hear it and process it unoffended, and
are you ready to go
and move forward with it?
Yeah.
And if you're closed, and if you're not transparent, and if you're not willing to be honest with yourself and to hear the truth, the facts of what it's going to take to pick yourself up or to go from A to Z, then you're going to get in your own way every time. Every single time.
Every single time. Yep.
And
I agree.
And so
you're going to end up abandoning yourself in the end. I mean, that's just, there's no way around it. The spiral ends.
I do love that analogy. I mean, it's keep your dang door open. I mean, and it's not to say, listen, not everyone's feedback. Sometimes, there's opinions and there's facts, okay? But I think, again, like I said earlier, it's easy to recognize when someone's just trying to be personal and put you down. Yeah, sure, okay. Shrug that off. No one cares. No one cares about people just trying to put you down. Just move on. But if it's people that, like, you know, again, ask yourself, is this person going to get anything out of, like, offending me, putting me down? Or are they trying to help me and maybe take our relationship to a better place?
And generally, you know better.
And generally, the answer is it's probably in our best interest to take our relationship to a better place, which is why they're giving me this feedback. And then the other thing is where facts are involved. Again, you know, cold, hard facts where your results are not what they should be, not where they need to be. And you're hearing from people more experienced than you know, more educated, and, you know, who've gone a little further than you, then yeah, like, be humble. You know, take the feedback, and don't just take the feedback. Ask for it, and make it a habit of being so transparent and such an open door that we talked last episode about processes, about how I have a process for, like, you know, writing things down and tracking what I need to get done. It should be a habit of yours to have a process in place to solicit regular feedback from your circle for yourself.
That's a good one.
And as long as you're doing that, I do think that, genuinely speaking, you're going to go further and where you want to go.
Yeah, you're going to reduce your stress and create a little bit of peace in your life at the same time, and naturally build a social circle that's going to bring all that peace to you. I mean, I can't think of a better response.
And achieve your results as well. So I think that's a good stopping point.
Yeah, that's great
for now.
Yeah.
So
we'll have Evan next week. Killer story.
And then we'll look forward to going forward to, you know, keeping a guest regular with us in the future as well.
Yeah.
So thanks for today, Sean. And
it's great.
We'll go from here.
We'll chat
Thanks,
next
guys.
time.